The question is simple. There is a directive, but this directive is not efficient.
The issue of requirements in the context of the clinical trials directive has been always central, which is where do you set the bar for what is acceptable from a quality point of view, what will generate convincing data, and what will most of all protect the patient. So I don't think the discussion is about lowering those standards. What we hope to achieve through the revision of the directive is actually a more clever implementation of the same standards, adapting them to each situation.
We have completed the recruitment of the patients in the US, and we are still trying to obtain authorization for some European centers. So there is something wrong here. We really need to cut the red tape to make sure we can include in our trials a fair number of European patients.
All who have been involved in the consultation phase regarding the clinical trials directive agreed that a single portal through the European Union would be helpful. It makes no sense to send all the documents necessary, like the investigator brochure or like the protocol, to the different member states. And we will lose a lot of time, and therefore I think it makes sense to send this material to a central portal, and also all the notification, all the communication can go through this portal, and this will, of course, make life much easier.
In the field of hematological disorders, and specifically hematological malignancies, we do need to run pan-European trials for several reasons. One of the first reasons is that some of these diseases are rare, or some of these diseases are more defined now on a molecular basis rather than on a general basis. So we are looking for more and more well-defined entities of this disease, which bring fewer and fewer patients in each group. And because we need to assess targeted therapies or targeted strategies in this patient population, we cannot run them at a national level.
Access to clinical trial is in fact access to medicine, particularly new drug. In the field of cancer, for example, often the only way to be treated is to be included in a clinical trial.
Obviously, in some countries of the Eastern Europe, the accessibility is lower, so the patients losing their last or the only chance for improvement of their situation.
Nowadays, most protocols are pharma-driven, which is good. I'm not complaining on this, obviously, but we would like academic studies too. Very often, the innovative studies come from universities, from centers, not from pharma. Pharma can do the large studies. I think we need both, but the academic studies can only be done if it's not too complicated to get them off the ground.
It is very surprising that when you compare the work of ethics committee from a state member to another, the papers needed by ethics committee, questions asked by ethics committee are different from a state member to another. It is one important issue we have to resolve in the future directive. We have to make that ethics committee will work similarly from a state member to another.
So far in my patient advocacy, I haven't met a patient representative who would be sitting on an ethics committee, although patients do have experience with unethical decisions which are happening in the standard clinical practice.
The implication of patients in the decision-making of clinical trials with the academy and with the industrial partners is crucial because in the end it is patients that we are treating. and their input in the choice of treatments, in the guidelines, in the safety and in the monitoring is very important, as they can give us their own impression on how they had been using their drugs in their treatments previously.
We must really do the right thing. We must be very ambitious. And we must remember that the trend is towards multi-center, multinational trials, not mono-center, mono-country trials.
We know that at the moment we have at least 100 new drugs in the clinical phase of the pre-approval trials. That means that perhaps 20 or 30 will be approved during the next years. That means that we have an urgent need to answer the questions that are relevant to our patients, and this has to be done very quickly in the next years. And if we need 3 or 4 years for initiation of these trials, we cannot give the right answers in the due time period.